When you imagine Hamlet, do you see in your mind's eye a manly man revenging his father's murder? Or do you see a wimp who can't make up his mind? How about Lady Macbeth? Is she a powerful conspirator to a murder, or is she a vindictive shrew hiding behind her husband? How about Lear? Could Lear be a selfish, deluded old woman? Can Bottom fall in love with Oberon instead of Titania? In Shakespeare's As You Like It, Jaques says, "All the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players." But the question is, what exactly are they playing at? Let's switch gears for a minute to Phoebe Waller-Bridge's groundbreaking television series, Fleabag. In the final episode, her soon-to-be stepmother is introducing some wedding guests. "This is my extraordinary friend Francine. She's a lesbian. This is Asif, my bisexual Syrian refugee friend. And this is my wonderful friend Lucy. She's a surrogate mother." The fact that it makes us uncomfortable to hear her announcing her friend's sexual practices out loud highlights two underlying facts. First, we all rely on our experiences with sex, gender, and sexuality to distinguish one person from another and try to comprehend them. And two, we don't like to admit that we do that because when we draw conclusions in this way, it's judgmental. Every encounter with another human being includes rapid, complex, and often subconscious calculations. We rely on cues familiar in our own culture and from our own experience to make sense of the appearance and behavior of other people. And the most basic calculation we make is that a man or a woman? Now, since most of us usually wear clothes, we don't just rely on the appearance of a body to make those decisions. We use gender, the ways that people identify tangible and intangible attributes defined on a spectrum that we have deemed masculine or feminine. Now, just how masculine or feminine we view these factors varies from culture to culture and from time to time. I am wearing pants today. 100 years ago, I could not have worn pants out in public socially. But these are not innocuous distinctions. Gendered attributes can be damaging when we use them to evaluate people positively or negatively, good or bad. So, for example, is a woman batting her eyelashes at a man innocuous and alluring, feminine, good? Or is she being clever and conniving, masculine, bad? Is a man wearing a pink and orange flowered shirt just a Southerner wearing Lily Pulitzer? Or is he girly with all the misogynistic and homophobic overtones of that word? Even a voice that sounds the same can be labeled differently depending on the sex of the speaker. A loud and commanding voice can be a leader if it's a man, or a shrew if it's a woman. Being too masculine or feminine, regardless of your sex, can help or hinder every aspect of your life. Who may want to date you, the kind of service you get at a restaurant, but also more important things like the kind of job you might be able to get, affecting your income and your career prospects. I said shrew a few minutes ago, so that takes us back to Shakespeare. What do our perceptions of sex and gender have to do with 400-year-old characters on a stage? But even saying it like that makes the answer obvious. When we go to a play, we expect to make snap judgments. We are given at most about 3 hours to completely understand what a playwright, actor, and director wanted us to think about a character, including their masculinity or femininity, and how it affects the play. What can Shakespeare teach us if his most famous characters manipulate the gender spectrum? What if they are regendered or degendered? Many productions have experimented with changing the sex of the actor, or changing the sex of a character, or playing with stereotypes of gendered behavior. Performances like this may help us see that a person's sex or gender might be fluid or universal, or maybe irrelevant. Let me share one possibility in Shakespeare of rethinking gender that might help us avoid some of the damage that happens when we assign gendered labels to human behavior. William Shakespeare wrote Richard II about 1595 as part of his semi-fictionalized series of plays about the English monarchy. The life and kingship of Richard II is inextricably and tragically intertwined with that of his cousin Henry Bolingbroke, the Duke of Hereford. Bolingbroke held Richard captive, was probably responsible in some way for his death, and ascended to the throne as Henry IV. Historically, we know that Richard was tall and good-looking, probably had something of a stammer, but also had some ideas about personal power and absolute monarchy that made him very unpopular and contributed to his downfall. In the play, Richard says about himself, "Not all the water in the rough, rude sea can wash the balm from the anointed king." But Bolingbroke comments on his vanity and his sense of self-righteousness. See, King Richard doth himself appear, as doth the blushing discontented sun from out the fiery portal of the east. Richard is symbiotically tied to Bolingbroke, his cousin, his childhood companion, but also his nemesis. They both know that their relationship will become a fight to the end for one of them and the throne for the other. Bolingbroke, in fact, concludes the play, "Though I did wish him dead, I hate the murderer, love him murdered." How do we see this powerful, weak, tragic, self-aggrandizing figure if the actor is male or female? One very famous production of Richard II opened at the National Theatre in London in 1996 and starred Fiona Shaw, whom you may know, among other things, as Harry Potter's Aunt Petunia. Fiona Shaw's Richard had short hair, ambiguous, non-gendered costuming, Shaw's normal alto voice, and was addressed by male pronouns throughout the play. I'd like to focus on a point in the play where Shaw chose to interpret Richard's actions to include a kiss with a male character. Bolingbroke, played on stage by David Threlfall, is about to duel the Duke of Norfolk, whom he is accused of being a traitor. The seriousness of this charge means a single combat duel, resulting in death for one of them. Richard wants to talk to Bolingbroke before the duel. "We will descend and fold him in our arms. Cousin of Hereford, as thy cause is right, so be thy fortune in this royal fight. Farewell, my blood, which if today thou shed, lament we may, but not revenge thee dead." In this moment, Shaw chose to take David Threlfall's face in her hands like this, gaze at him with this look of desperate foreboding, and then kiss him fervently on the mouth. Now, this is a sexual action, but is it between a man and a woman, or two men? Or is the ambiguity of this action allow for an avenue of interpretation that defies sexuality? Is it between a king and a subject? Between family members, with them both knowing one might be dead in a few minutes? Is it a sign of the horrible knowledge that they do not want to exist without each other, but they can't exist with each other? Shaw used this kiss to disrupt our assumption about two men in a close relationship. In an interview with the New York Times, Shaw says, "This play is not about a homosexual relationship between Richard and Bolingbroke. This is a different kind of love story between two cousins, where one eventually destroys the other." David Tennant's Richard also did not look like anyone else on the stage. He had waist-length hair extensions, this fabulous gold fingernail polish, and robes that were definitely not dresses, but also did not resemble that of the other male characters. Some critics have zigzagged through Tennant's performance, looking at moments that they claim shows Richard's homosexuality or Richard's bisexuality. But whatever Richard's sexuality, his behavior is not necessarily tied to aspects of masculinity or femininity. Richard has a desire for power that is narcissistic and self-destructive. In an interview with Newsweek, David Tennant described Richard as a child seeking attention. Richard believes that he has this right to be king, and therefore however he behaves and deports himself is correct. So he doesn't really need to conform to any perceived notion of kingship. Tennant also chose to kiss Bolingbroke, but it's a completely different kind of kiss. It is flashy and comical, almost taunting. This kiss denies a relationship of any kind, especially one with a cousin who wants the throne. The most talked about change in this production, however, had to do with another character, the Duke of Almerle, who is a cousin of both Richard and Henry. In Act 3, Richard is lamenting the loss of his kingship and its trappings, but finally notices that Almerle, sitting next to him, is also distraught about losing his monarch. Richard says, "Almerle, thou weepst, my tender-hearted cousin." David Tennant strokes his hair gently and kisses him on the mouth. Obviously also a sexual moment, but a moment of comfort, as they both know the end is coming soon. Moreover, director Gregory Dorn used this moment to set up a shock at the end of the play. The script calls for another character, Exton, to break into Richard's jail cell in Pomfret Castle and murder Richard. But in this production, it is Almerle. The kiss of consolation becomes almost a kiss of Judas. You will notice that in describing these productions, I have not used adjectives that we overtly associate with gender, such as effeminate or hysterical or macho. And that's because what these actors give us is the possibility that appearance and behavior can be detached from gender. Richard is vacillating and self-serving and arrogant and desperate. These do not have to be labeled as manly or womanly traits with the baggage of good or bad that comes with that. Richard's decisions and actions are just bad, all by themselves. A person can be powerful or affectionate or cruel. They can wear pearls or pants. Or if you're Harry Styles or Vice President Harris, you can wear both. When we look at other people in our world off the stage, we will always make judgments about them, but we may find more clarity and more understanding if we remove masculine and feminine as ways to classify and judge them.